What is up, guys? We are back for another incredible episode of the Motivation Everything Show. I am your host, Cody Cottle, where every single week I bring on a special high-value guest. And this week I am joined by J.D. Daley. Guys, I want you to help me give J.D. a welcome as I begin to read his intro. But first, what I want everybody to do that's tuning in live right now, I want you to drop live below in the comments. You might be joining us from YouTube. You might be joining us from the Motivation Everything community. Might be my personal timeline. We weren't able to stream to Instagram today. I apologize. IG will get you next time. But let us know if you're live and where you're from. I give this awesome intro to our incredible guest today. So this week, I'm joined by John Daley, founder of the Undeniable Closer, advanced career development training for remote sales professionals with 15 years sales experience. He's a mentor, he's a trainer, a consultant, and a speaker. And you guys are going to see in our conversation today how much value this guy brings. I've had 2 conversations with him, and he always over-delivers on the value he brings. He helps high-integrity individuals transition into the remote sales industry and perform at the highest level. He also helps coaches and agency owners develop their sales processes and attract top sales talent, allowing them to scale quickly. If you're in the industry I'm in, you know how important that is. He's visited 34 countries. We're going to be talking about a life by design today. This guy has done it mostly between Central America and Europe. And you're in Cancun right now, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm in Cancun, Mexico.
Man, he's always all over the world. And in less than a year, he's done all traveling. He left his dream job, a successful director position, which a lot of people would be comfortable at an agency, and started traveling the world while building a 7-figure business from the ground up. Guys, help me welcome JD. Woo!
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Absolutely, dude. We're honored to have you. So JD, man, let's get right into it, brother. Like, tell us your story. Tell us about you. Help the audience get to know you a little better.
Okay. I mean, I grew up in Canada on the East Coast. And like most people after high school, didn't know what I was going to do. Kind of got, I wouldn't say pressured, but for lack of a better option, kind of forced it down the university road. I lasted a solid 3 weeks in university and probably made about 4 classes in that 3 weeks. Had the time of my life, extracurricular wise, but I knew rather quickly what I didn't want to do. And that was spend 4 years learning business from someone that's never ran a business, and to take English literature and philosophy when I wanted to learn real life skills. And so I dropped out within the first semester, spent the rest of my time there kind of working at a bar and having a good time. And then kind of had to go home, break it to the parents over Christmas break, like a lot of people do, and had to sit down and decide what was next. I knew I'm from a small town, and I knew it was factory or bust, basically. Working at a plant, pie factory, tire factory, something along those lines. And I knew that wasn't for me. I grew up in a family of mostly RCMP, police officers and nurses, and I knew that wasn't for me either. So I just decided to take off and moved out west. At the time, there was kind of an oil boom in Alberta and in Canada. So I made that move, and I got out again, just taking whatever job I could, bartending, serving. And I realized that it was a dead end. Again, I was enjoying myself, but the people around me, I was seeing people 10, 15, 20 years older than me that never got out of the industry and were still bartending. And I seen the sadness behind their eyes of that's not where they wanted to be, but they said they were having a great time. And so I remember just being like, I got to make a change. And I applied for, I think, did up the resume, cover letter, all that stuff. And I think I applied at 200 places and got 1 interview. And I was so lucky with that interview because it was a door-to-door position. And I didn't know it was a door-to-door position, right? They told me, wear a suit, come on in. right? You're going to be out in the field. So I'm thinking like, you know, in my mind, for some reason, I had this New York Stock Exchange, you know, I'm going to be moving and shaking, doing business. And all of a sudden we pull up in this suburb in Calgary and we both get out. And the guy goes to knock on the door, and I'm thinking like, oh, is this his friend's house? Are we picking something up before we go to work? And here we are, right? And he starts pitching them, and I'm like, what is this? And he explained it to me on the way to the second door. And he was like, do you think you could do this? I said, well, I guess so. I didn't have lack of a better option at that point, right? And so he knocks on the door and then runs away.
He put you right in the fire.
Right in the fire. So the guy answers the door. I spit out half company. I think I said, I'm the guy's name. I'm Mike. And, you know, just, hey, do you want this? And he's like, no. Slammed the door in my face. And I'm like, oh, this guy, you know, took me out in the middle of nowhere, took off. What is going on? Just tail between my legs. I start walking back, you know, trying to figure out if I'm going to take a bus. And he kind of comes out of the bushes. And, you know, I get mad at him. We talk it over. And he's like, that's the worst it's ever going to be, right? You have to learn to deal with rejection. You have to learn to deal with those awkward situations and to be able to turn those into something positive. Now let's go to the next door. And that was kind of the first lesson in dealing with rejection. And from there, obviously, you know, I seen a bunch of young guys making a lot of money, and I decided to commit to it and rose up to number one in the company and number three in the country. Learned a lot of key principles. All these young guys were reading books on personal development, self-development, you know, sales processes and stuff that I'd never been interested in. And none of my friends were definitely not ever interested in. And I just took it and ran with it. And started to make the transition. Obviously, you know, door to door and minus 40 is not where you want to be. So I thought, I can quit this and start from scratch again, or I can use this and never have to come back here again. And kind of develop myself through that, and was able to work with some pretty large companies from there, and kind of build my career over the following years of based on really diving into the performance. And I love being able to kind of write my own paychecks and deliver, not so much based on the time or the 9 to 5, but everything I learned improved my paycheck. And so it was a direct correlation of like, when I improve, the money improves. So I got into some different sales gigs, worked with Xerox for a while, was in the top 10 for them for a while, moved into some oil and gas and worked on some larger contracts. But I decided that I wanted to work on something I was passionate about. So moved to Toronto and started working on some agency. I'd always been interested in like advertising, and started working with an animation company, doing some really, really cool projects. And so we focused on that. I became a director there. And then I started noticing, it was around the time when like Google started getting big.
Right.
And all these companies started putting a ping pong table in the office and being like, oh, I need you to stay late on Friday. And then they would put, you know, craft beers on Saturdays. Oh, come in for a half day. And I started trading more and more time until it was, you know, 15-hour days, you know, basically 5 days a week. And then thinking about it Saturday and Sunday. And it basically consumed my life. And I was sitting there in my dream job and not happy, and trying to think. I had that kind of what I call like the Monday morning scramble, where you're thinking through your head, like, do I have a rich uncle? Is there a business that I can create in the next hour so I don't have to do this? Right? Like what resources do I have? What books could I be an author? Right? Like what could I do to get out of this week of work? And I realized at that point that before I could always blame the job, right? Like, oh, it's a bad manager, or the position doesn't pay enough, or the responsibilities. And I finally had my dream job, dream salary, all the benefits, and I still wasn't happy. And so I had to look at it and say, it's not them, it's me. They're not doing anything wrong. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. It's me. I'm not supposed to be here. And so I put my notice in that day, and branched off and took some time off, some serious time off, started traveling. first year, basically just blew through the savings, had a great time. Life was fun. But then I got to a point where I was in Korea and I had to decide between a taxi and a sandwich. And I was like, oh man, I let this go a little too hard, a little too long. And so I moved in with a friend of mine. He luckily let me stay there, and I got down to business. I just started planning and developing what skills do I have? What do I want to do? What do I want to spend my time doing? What impact do I want to have? And I think the first week I made $30. And that $30 was one of the sweetest amounts of money I've ever made, right? I've had multiple six-figure jobs, and there was nothing sweeter than that $30. But the next week, I made close to $8,000, and it started to spiral from there. That's when I kind of found this high ticket space. And for the first almost 10 years of my career, I had no idea what a lead was. I didn't know that there was people that actually wanted to talk to me. I was bring the donuts and coffee type guy, knock down the doors, bug the people, right? Get in there everywhere and create. So when I found the high ticket space, people wanted to talk to me. They had a problem that I could solve. They knew what was coming and they were motivated. Like I just took fire. And so I did 120K in commissions in my first 4 months in Korea, working night because of the time difference. So my night
started having to decide between sandwiches and titties at that point.
That's right, exactly. So I went from, probably having about $30, $20 in my bank account to about 110, 115 in 4 months, and working the night shift, 9 p.m. to about 10 a.m. because of the time difference. And I came out of there just invigorated and what's next. And so one thing that I've always done is when I perform or when I get to the top of the leaderboard, then I look at how can I help other people get up there? And that's exactly what I did. When I became number one on that campaign, I started opening up an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening to help anybody else on the campaign that was struggling, because it was a 30-person office and there was a lot of people struggling. There was probably only 8 performers. And it really opened my eyes and the coach's eyes, because I think over that month, 3 people showed up, right? Of the 22, 23 that were struggling, 3 people showed up. Little did I know that the coach was watching this as well and got rid of everybody that didn't show up, that didn't improve.
Oh, wow.
And so now I had a whole new problem on my hands and I felt responsible. And so I had never heard of these high ticket closer courses. I didn't know. When I was growing up, no one wanted to be in sales unless you were obsessed with it. It was all or nothing. And now it was people that were Googling how to make money online and finding their way into the sales space, but they didn't even know it was sales. They got sold as an inbound closer or a high ticket closer. They didn't even know that this is just sales under a different name. And so I thought it was much easier to take people that had that background and teach them this new space like myself than to take someone, fresh off the street that had no idea how to influence and persuade good decision making and try and teach them everything at once. And so I basically took it upon myself to fill those 20 spots. And we did that. And I set up the new training and we grew. The company grew. And I've always kind of found myself, I've always offered a service before the business. And that's when my recruiting business took off. I realized that there was a disconnect between coaches and closers. There was kind of a trust issue, right? There was a lot of integrity that's lost. Every closer is a top closer until you put them on the phone. Every coach has a 6-figure opportunity until you realize they don't have leads, they don't have past sales, they don't have training, they don't have resources. And so I was that gap between the top 20% of closers and the top 20% of coaches, and playing matchmaker instead of playing recruiter, because a lot of recruiters will just put someone in the role, one and done, where a matchmaker will find out, are you the best person for this gig? And that took off extremely quickly, extremely successful. But I realized that was not my passion. That was not what I wanted to do. And so I realized that there was the parts that I liked were the mentorship and helping both sides develop to be able to attract the other. And so that was the space that I ultimately found myself in and find myself in now, was facilitating the growth of both sides and making sure that they can connect with each other, not the recruiting side, but the mentorship of how to become a top performer on the closing side, and then how to organize your business and your sales process to attract top talent.
Wow, man, that's incredible. You know, and JD, I've gotten to know you a little bit, and I look forward to getting to know you more. And it's obvious that you have created a life by design. And in your story, there's a few things that stood out to me. One of the biggest things is you said I got to make a change moment. And I believe that's when you said you went out west and you were like working in the bars and stuff, and you had that like, man, I got to make a change moment. And I think that's significant for everybody watching live and that watches the replay of this, because I think we've all been in that moment, right? Like, I remember my I got to change moment, and I've probably had a few, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I want you to dive deep into that moment, because I feel there's a lot of people that are watching this and will watch this that experience that. And maybe they're feeling it right now, but they don't know what to do next. Can you take us back to that moment and how you actually made that change in your life?
Yeah, I've had many of those moments, and I have them often, and I hope to have more of them. Because I think the biggest thing when we're young is our parents don't always know what's best, right? They do the best they can, and their parents did the best they can, and the parents before them did the best. You only know what you know, right? And you don't need a license to parent, and so everybody's just passing down a little bit better of, they hope you're a little bit better than they were. That's really the best you can hope for. And one of the principles that I think is that we're teaching kids that we need to stop is you don't quit something. I think you should quit often. I think that you should be able to quit anytime you want, anything that you want. It's why are you quitting? If you're quitting because it's hard, then I am totally against that. If you're quitting because it's struggle, because it's uncomfortable, then I think that's something you have to look inside yourself. If you're quitting because you thought you wanted to do something and you no longer align with that thing, quit early, quit often. And I think that was one of the things that I've always had the foresight of. If it's not what I want to do, then what is the satisfaction of completing it? Right? Like,
yeah, that's powerful, man. I like the way that you put that too. Why are you quitting?
Yeah.
And aligning that. And I think I've never heard that before, man. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like door to door was the perfect example. I wanted to quit every day, but I wanted to quit because it was hard.
Right.
And so I always look at, there's kind of two ways you can go. You can go through it or you can go around it. And you should be avoiding things that you want to go that don't align with what you're doing and what your mission, your path, right? But if something's challenging, if something is giving you that struggle, you should go through it. Yeah. And so that was the first thing, is kind of the first big aha moment of I need to make a change, was based on I'm seeing the path. Like I said, I've seen what happens after 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I did not want to be that 45, 50-year-old guy at the bar, right? And that was everybody has a different mission and a different path, right? But that wasn't my path.
Right.
And so seeing that, of like having a little bit of foresight of where that goes, I think played a huge impact of being able to make the change.
So what I'm hearing you say is you had the self-awareness to look around. And I've worked in the restaurant industry, and I've bartended and waited tables, and in the same predicament. I remember looking at the people that were in their 40s still bartending and waiting tables and being like, whoa, like, this isn't the life I want. Like, I don't want to be in their shoes when I'm 40 years old. And clearly I need to make a change to see a change, or I'm going to end up exactly where they're at. I don't have a college degree. I got to figure something out. So I think that, guys watching this right now, it's important to develop that self-awareness of knowing when you're quitting and why you're quitting, just like JD said. And I think that's really powerful. JD, I do got to say, I don't know if I brought this up to you when we connected before. I did door-to-door sales for a year.
You did mention that, yeah.
Yeah, so like we understand it, guys. If you've done door-to-door sales, it is no easy task to do. And I wouldn't say I hated every minute of it. I actually enjoyed the first 6 months because I love a challenge. But the second 6 months, I was so over it.
Yeah. Add -40 in there and it becomes, I mean, I love the environment. I loved the growth. I love the morning meetings. I love the night meetings. I love the people. But there was still that like, oh, this again, getting
I gotta get
anxiety
up
before the door.
Again.
Yeah. I got to apologize. I think there's some construction. I don't know if that's coming through on your end. I can move if it's a big distraction.
We're hearing it a little bit, but at the end of the day, man, the show must go on. It's no big deal. You know, I'm big about just rolling with it. It makes this show unique and authentic and genuine, guys. You know, it's not scripted. Me and JD are off the head right now.
All right, my man. Let me know if it gets too bad. I can move rooms or something like that.
Okay, no worries. Yeah. Then I wanted to kind of go into, there was a point in your story, JD, where you went down this journey, you made the change, right? You realized in bartending and stuff, I needed to do something different. You pursued sales, you climbed the ladder, you became successful, you landed the dream job, you became the director, and even still in that role, and I can relate to this in my own story, you realize like, man, I'm not passionate about this.
Yeah.
You wanted to do something you were passionate about. At what point does somebody make that decision where they have the cushy job, but it's not what they love and they need to make a change?
Yeah. So, I mean, I heard a saying really early on that stuck with me, and it was, you know, nothing kills big success like small success. And I've taken that and ran with it in that if this is not, sometimes it's so hard to leave. When you got nothing, you know, you got nothing to lose. It's very easy to make that jump. But when you have the secure job security, when you have the income, when you have these different things around you, it makes it a little bit more challenging. Right. But I've realized that that is not the end goal. That is not the vision. So I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to use it as a stepping stone and make the move and give up that kind of medium level success for something larger.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too. And there's that level of, well, it's interesting too, because I don't know if you ever heard, they say when the pain of staying where you're at hurts more than the pain of making change, then you'll invoke change. But I feel like that's like the last resort of change, right? Like that's like when like I put my hand on a hot stove and it's so hot, oh my God, I got to take my hand off. But there are points before then that we can make changes. And I feel like for you, you could have stayed, right? Like you could have stayed in that role and been fine and made a lot of money and been decently happy, but you knew that you could do more with your life, right?
Yeah.
So you made that change.
Yeah. I mean, you only have one to live, right? And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that's always going to be there, right? That platform, once you get, it's almost like in a video game, when you get to a new level and it saves, right? Like you can always come back to that. You can always go back to the 9 to 5. You can always go back to that level. Like you reached it already. It's not going to be a big jump of like, oh, you were away for 6 months chasing your dream. Like everything's changed. It's no longer available to you. And so you can kind of save the video game there and go take that giant leap. And if for some reason you get out there and you realize, no, actually I did like that. I wanted to experiment, but I did like it where I was at. And sometimes you get new perspective, you can always go back.
Right.
And so I knew that if I needed to, that position would always be available for me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so true, man. And I think people are just scared of making change because change is scary. But like, so I have a background in sales like yourself. And I know at any day that I could always go back into sales and make 6 figures. Yeah. Right. Like all day long, it's a skill that you learn. So one of the cool things about doing the live show, guys, is we do give you guys the opportunity to ask questions while we're live that we can ask JD. And JD, I'm going to throw a question up on the screen and read it off to you that we had. Awesome. I can't see if you guys have to fill out the info to see your face, or you can just do it like this and I'll ask. But somebody asked, when did you find out you fell in love with sales?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question because I don't know if I ever truly fell in love with sales. As in, I was never like, I kind of grew up in that Glengarry, Glen Ross, boiler room type, you know, very much like fraternity type sales, Wolf of Wall Street style. And I was never in love with that. But the one thing that I did love was connecting with people on a daily basis, and you never knew who was going to be behind that door. You never knew who was just waiting for someone to talk to, who was going to break down. And what I really fell in love with was the psychology of decision making, of influence and persuasion to make good decisions. And, you know, I was never the top closer because I was the best salesperson, but I outworked everybody and I made deeper connections. I really feel like that know, like, and trust, that was my bread and butter. And being able to give away a deal because it wasn't a good fit really helped me in the long run. So I fell in love with being able to influence people to make the right decisions for them at an early age, probably, you know, 19 years old, 18 years old. And it was sitting at the counter or the kitchen table, signing a deal and doing the math and saying, like, this is going to save you enough to take the vacation. This is going to your kids', you know, college fund, or this is going to pay down your car payments. It was the connection that I really fell in love with. I've always been a social person, and that's what I love to do, is influence those good decision making.
Dude, I absolutely love it. It sounds like I got construction going on at my end now, man. We can't get a break.
Yeah, man.
They're installing windows on my place, and I guess they're doing upstairs. So, guys, if you hear some knocking and construction, like, it just makes the show more unique. We'll roll with it.
We're both loud too, so that helps.
Yeah, we are. Well, dude,
we'll talk over it.
It's so crazy what you just said, because I have almost 10 years experience in sales myself. I've never really loved sales. I'll tell anybody that all day. And honestly, I couldn't wait to get out of sales to create my own business. It's interesting, the commonality. The reason I was so good in sales was connection and relationships. I mean, integrity and building that connection with people and figuring out how to solve their problems, make it make sense, explain it in a way they understood. And then obviously having the confidence to ask them to buy is very important in sales, as you know. But yeah, it's cool, man, because I think I'm the same way. And I love doing what we do now because we get to really firsthand see the impact we get to make through the programs and the coaching and the consulting that we sell. And that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing about the way the industry is transitioning. I really believe the Wolf of Wall Street days are over. That with the internet, it's held people accountable, and people can talk about their experiences now. And it's so easy to find out what someone's doing on the other side. Before, with the smile and dial cold calling, there was no way to ever track who that person was that misled you. And now your reputation is everything. And, you know, so much of what I do, I always tell the closers, like, nothing that I've done in my business, no strategic partnerships, no business move, no strategies has had a better ROI than serving people without expectation. Taking the call with someone that has no money, you know, has led to the referral after referral, creating those loyal followers and promoters, because they know that what they see is what they get, and that, you know, whether it's midnight or Sunday morning, they can reach me and say, I know their family, I know what they're dealing with, I know their struggles, their pain, their insecurities, I know their dreams and goals. And that's the biggest difference. Is anybody, you know, I would definitely make more money if I sold a course. There is no doubt. My business model is horrible, right? It's the worst business model possible because I'm accountable for each person I bring in, right? To scale, I have to think, okay, does Tom not get as much my time? Does this person not get as much as my time? Who is going to be affected by this? And I know each person by name. My competitors will sell thousands of courses a day, and they have a less than 5% success rate.
Courses are evergreen and good for the person making them to make money, but they're crap for the person buying them. Like you said, 5% completion rate, and out of the 5%, like 10% actually get results. And that's why I myself haven't invested time, energy, or money into creating a course either, because I don't see the value that it actually gives somebody. No,
when I take on someone, right, I don't take their trust in me lightly. I don't look at them like a prospect. That's a person with a family. This could be the biggest investment of their life, right? This might be their last dollar, right? And so, I tell everybody that comes in that I don't take your trust in me lightly, and I will do everything in my power to help you. Your success is now tied to my success.
100%.
If you fail, I fail. And if we win together. And I hate to lose. That's the other thing. I'm extremely competitive. So I am literally going to do everything in my power to help that person. And, for me, we ran a case study with 60 people, and like the reward at Christmas time, I got a video Christmas card with like 55 people saying that it was a life-changing experience. I never asked for that. I didn't expect it. It, brought me to tears. But that, for me, to have 60 people go through and 55, coming back and saying it was a life-changing experience, that's, to me, worth more than squeezing every last dime out of your audience.
On that, man. You can't put a price on that. That's powerful.
Yeah, for sure. That's the drive.
You said something key earlier, and my brother Ben, he's actually here right now. He's a good friend of mine. We have something we live our lives by that aligns, I feel like, with your core values. And we always say when you give without expectation of return, that it does create a guaranteed return every single time. And by sowing those seeds, serving, and JD, you've done a good job of that, man. And I admire that about you. And as we move into the second half of this show, the topic is living a life by design. And how have you been able to use all of this to live a life by design?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me was, like I said, being able to quit something that's good for something great, and always realigning. And so very early on, there's a couple things that I've used to get in alignment first, because I think we have to be in alignment, or else you either live by default or by design. And I've lived by both. And I will tell you factually, living by design is a lot more fun. You don't want what life throws you, right? You want to have some plan. And so there's a couple exercises that I do to get in that alignment. One, we call it like the 3Ds. So destination, direction, detours. Other people use kind of the Walt Disney, which is dreamer, realist, critic. I like the destination, direction, detour, because your life is kind of like a road trip, right? And the best part, if you went on a long road trip, I've traveled across Canada a couple times in an RV and had a great time. I am not like, oh, thank God I'm here, right? You don't look back and like, remember when we got there, how great that was? No, it's the gas station, it's getting lost, it's finding a lake and jumping in it. It's the road trip is what is meaningful. And for some reason, it's human nature to only focus on the destination, right? And we want to fast forward through life. And it hit me early on when I was listening to, I forget what comedian it was, but they were talking, a very famous comedian, and they were talking about how their best years were when they lived in their car behind the Comedy Store in LA, and they were working the door, and they were like, that was the time of my life. Yeah. And when I look back, it wasn't the time that I was most successful, the time I was spending money. It was those crazy moments when you didn't know what was going to happen.
The grind, man.
That's it. And so I've always been clear about the destination, but I focus a lot of energy on the directions to get there.
Okay.
And so when I have a clear destination, let's say I want to build this mentorship, or I want to help coaches, or I want to travel the world, right? That is kind of the end destination, but it's the directions. It's where we're going to go on the way and how we're going to get there. What is the mode of transportation that I spend a lot of energy on, right? And so what I've done throughout is kind of treat my life like a business, and that I am the CEO. I make the CEO decisions. I have a vision and a mission, right? And I have core values. And the core values are, everything else is pretty flexible, right? If I want to do this business or that business, if I want to take off on the weekend, or if I want to go to Thailand or do this, like, that's fine. But the core values are unshakable.
Right.
They have to be evident to myself and everybody around me in every decision that I make. And so I use the core values as kind of a compass to be able to make the decisions that I need to lay out the direction. The other thing that I think has helped me a lot is focusing on the detour. So knowing what roadblocks lie ahead mean that I'm not caught off guard. right? I can keep pace because before I start the venture, I kind of have the emergency kit in the back. If we're thinking about this road trip analogy,
Right, you got the water in the back, the first aid kit,
the
like
plan, right? I got the music. You got to have good music for a road trip. I got everything prepared,
snacks, of course. Like, come on.
Exactly, and I'm thinking about what lies ahead and what could slow this path down. And I think we don't give our critic enough credit, because the critic is supposed to be the buzzkill, like, you know, I'm trying to dream here. What is this critic doing? But really, the critic protects the dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's their job to think ahead and say, well, what if this happens? Or what would you do if? Because life doesn't care that we want this in this amount of time, right? I know a little bit about your path. You know a little bit about mine. And life doesn't care that we want this at this date, and we want to be, you know, multimillionaires before we're 30, and, you know, all of these things. Life throws what life wants to throw at us, and we need to be prepared for that. And so I've always been able to balance the dream with the critic and find that balance of, okay, here's what I want to do, and here's what I'm going to do if all that falls apart. Here's my plan B, plan C, plan D. And so I've been prepared. The other thing that I think is really important in this road trip is I have an internal certainty. I have no idea how this call is going to go. I have no idea how the business is going to go. I have no idea what's going to happen next, right? I have no idea if there's going to be construction in the back, or, you know, I break my ankle tomorrow. I don't know those things. A lot of people, they make choices based on external certainty, right? Job security, how their family feels about something, the sure bet. I've always thought that no matter what happens, I'll figure out a way, right? I'll find a way. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and that the internal certainty is whatever happens, happens, and I will adjust and I will end up on top. And so that's really helped me be able to kind of plan these directions and give up the sure thing, because the sure thing is in here. It's internal.
Let's go, dude. And you know, it's crazy because you see people that have that internal certainty. That's what you called it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, one name that just immediately pops top of mind for me is Gary Vaynerchuk. And I admire him a lot. And he talks about it all the time, man, right? Like, it doesn't matter what happens today, tomorrow, whatever, if my businesses flop, if I lose it all, whatever, because I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only thing that matters. I'm so set on the death. Like, and this contradicts a little bit, right? Because it's not about just focusing on the destination, but it is knowing you will get to the destination that gets you there.
That's right. Yeah, it's that certainty. And it's funny that you bring up Gary, because, you know, part of when I started looking at my life like a business, I thought, I am the biggest strength in my business. I am also the biggest weakness. Right? I can be the one that sabotages everything. I am human. I have insecurities. You know, I have self-sabotage and limiting beliefs, right? And I realized that I was making the best decisions and I was hitting home runs. I was also the one striking out. And early on, what I decided to do is, a business limits the negative impact of a CEO by assigning a board of directors. And so I literally did that for my own life. Is I looked at the points where I was weakest or where I wanted to improve the most, and I assigned a board of directors. And I literally would have board meetings a couple times a day for decisions. For the first 21, 30 days, I had a board of directors meeting for everything. So I had about 5, 6 board of directors. And if the alarm clock went off and my vote was to hit the snooze button, and the other 5 board of directors said, get the hell up, I got up, right? I limited my negative impact on my business, which was my life. And I started making better decisions, and I started getting more business results in my life. And so when I started this mentorship, I wanted to, this is something that I've never done before. And so I changed my board up often based on the new challenges or areas that I want to improve on.
Right.
And one of the things that I don't agree with everything that Gary Vee says. I don't think anybody does, right? No one agrees with everything you say or I say. But
Right.
one of the things that I respect the hell out of in him is his accessibility, right? Like, it just feels like I could text him right now and in a couple hours text back.
And you know what? You could, and there's a good chance he will text back.
Exactly. And he just feels like you wake up, he's there, right? One piece of content turns into 54 different pieces, right? He just seems like he's across the screen from you. And that was the feel that I wanted in the mentorship, because a lot of people said when they took a course or went in a coaching program, it's like the person doesn't know who I am and I've never talked to them, but somehow they're a mentor. And so I wanted true accessibility, that I wanted to be there. Even when I wasn't there, I wanted you to feel like I'm there and feel like I knew who you were and what you're doing, and that we were building something for you specifically. And so I assigned Gary Vee as my director of communication and accessibility, right? And the reason that we have such a high success rate and such a loyal following, right? It's not a big following, but it's a loyal following, is because everybody knows that some of them have tested it out. 3 a.m, Sunday afternoon, right? Like, and I've been there and I've jumped on the call and talked them through it if it's 5 minutes, and it means a lot. And so I think that having that board of directors for my life has made a huge impact. And my board of directors told me to travel. My board of directors have done so much for my impact, for my energy, for the choices that I might have not made myself.
That's powerful. And so you guys know, there's a book also, Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if you've read it, by Napoleon Hill. Anybody watching this, highly encourage it. And Napoleon Hill talks about that, especially in the last chapter of the book. I believe he really dives into his board of directors. And I would imagine you had some inspiration through that book for this, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I read that book, geez, probably when I was like 18 or 19.
Same.
And, you know, maybe 7, 8 years later, you come up with this brilliant idea, right? Like, what about a board of directors, right? It's kind of like like I've been studying a lot of comedians lately, because I think there's a lot that translates well into this. And it's like that premise for a joke, and they're like, oh yeah, like Chris Rock joke, and you're like, what? So it's one of those things where it's like my genius idea that someone else thought of, 100 years ago.
Well, wisdom, man, it's crazy because wisdom's not new. Like, that's something I've realized too, is like basically all the wisdom's already been discovered in the world.
Oh, of course.
We're just repurposing it, right?
That's
and
it.
Understanding in our own ways and repackaging it and redelivering it. But I want the audience to understand the value of this, because I've done the same in my life, and it's changed my life too, JD. And guys, people you admire, people that you look up to, you don't even have to have a personal relationship with them. But if you have read their books, you follow them online, you feel that you know their personality well enough, you can literally subconsciously assign a board of directors. And every time you're faced with a decision in your life, you can go to that board. The mind is very powerful. Trust me, it works. JD knows it works. And you can go to these people and say, hey, this is our decision. This is my vote. And you get all of their votes. And literally your mind can craft an answer, yes or no, based on what it knows about them and their personality types. And it's powerful. It's removing just you from the scenario. I'm really glad you brought that up, man, because I think a lot of us maybe do stuff like that, but we don't share it with the world. And I admire that you do.
Yeah. And actually recently, one of the people that I added was kind of an interesting experiment. I added 2-year future me to the board.
Whoa.
Right. And so what is, like, I just picture this guy yelling at me of like, don't do that, or do this, or like put more energy into this, or invest more in Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like we always have this hindsight, and hindsight is 20/20, but could we speed that up and talk to our future self and have that conversation? Because that's who's going to have to live with the efforts that you put in. That person is the one going to be affected. Oftentimes our results aren't immediate, right? Another one of my favorite quotes is shit travels at the speed of shit, right? And so we're always living yesterday's efforts. And so I've really been in communication with that future self and working as if, because I'm not going to have, the person I am now is not going to have to live that life, right? It's the 2-year me thinking about it like passing the torch, right? I want to make sure that I set that person up with the life that they want to live.
Yeah.
Right? And it's been powerful.
Dude, that's powerful. I mean, what you are doing today, the future you will get to experience the fruits of that labor.
That's right.
100%. And I remember, like, I didn't decide on like a board of future me, but I used to think about like, okay, where my life is at right now, it kind of sucks, being honest with myself. Like, I'm miserable, but I know if I suffer now, future Cody is going to have that dream life. And I just got to endure through this, take the actions, put in the work. And one day there will be a future version of me that is living the imagination of what I want my life to look like, a life by design.
That's exactly it. And I think a lot of people, when they hear lifestyle design, some people think of the Tim Ferriss, the digital nomad lifestyle. That has nothing to do with lifestyle design. I think they've been blended too well together because it's an attractive life to be able to travel the world and work remotely and remove yourself from the 9 to 5. That's it. But for some people, that has nothing. They don't want to leave their town, right? They want a better life for their family. They want to live less stressed. They want a nicer house, or they want their kids to go to a nicer university, or they want to work on a passion project. Like, lifestyle design is the process of really designing the life that aligns with your nature, your strengths, your values, your dreams, your passion, your purpose. Not everybody's going to take off and go to Costa Rica, and that's not what it's about. But it's the freedom to live a life the way that you want it. Right. And really
life the way that you want it. I love that.
Yeah. I often think about my life like a home, right? For some reason, we would design our home. We can put the posters up, the pictures, the furniture and this and that. But we spend more time in our life than we do our home. But we spend more time designing our home than we do our life. And to me, that's crazy. Your home should be a reflection of you. When someone walks in, they see what, the door-to-door thing, you see what someone's proud of in the entryway, right? Well, if someone looked at your life, can they tell what your dream, what your vision, what your purpose, does that reflect who you are as a person?
Boom. That's powerful, brother. So let's do this real quick. What are like a couple actionable steps, JD, that you could give to the audience for creating that lifestyle design?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to go through that destination, directions, detours, or sometimes, like I said, a dreamer, realist, critic. And oftentimes our realist and critic wants to get in there early on. I want to make this, but I'd be happy with that. I could do this, but this is more realistic. They each need a segment, right? The dreamer needs to dream without the critic coming in and saying that's not possible. And oftentimes we're too quick to put that out. And so what I would say is get really clear about the dream. If you knew you couldn't fail, right? That's a good exercise of walking through these ideas of not what's possible, right? It should be on the edge of ridiculous. That's where you should start, right? And get very clear about not how it's going to happen, but just everything that you would want, why you would want it, what it would feel like, right? What's the dream house, property? Where is it? What do you want to drive? Who do you want to be with? Just everything that excites you. And you don't have to be high and mighty, right? If some people say, oh, that car is an ego, who cares? If that's what makes you happy, get the car, put it in the dream, put it all in there without any restrictions. And then open up to the realist of like, okay, well, that's, the astronaut ship maybe has sailed right now, but these ones there is a clear path to that. There is a model that makes sense here. And what would I have to do? That's another powerful question. Not, can I do it, right? But what would I have to do? What would have to happen? What alignment would have to take place for me to get there? And the realist will start bridging the gaps to like, where I'm at now, what are the milestones? How do I get? What of these dreams are within reach in this lifetime? And how can I get there? And then the critic, right? Of like, what could go wrong? What about this? What if it doesn't work out? And how do we plan for that to keep the dream alive? I think that's a really valuable exercise. The other thing is working in reverse. So reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Right? You don't like your 9 to 5. What don't you like about it? Right? Because chances are you'll probably like the opposite of what you don't like. right? When I started in this business, I knew I didn't want the results of the 30,000 other closers that were struggling, right? So I just started doing the opposite. I had no idea what I was doing. I just started doing the opposite. Okay, they start from the bottom. I'm going to start from the top. They're reaching out cold outbound. I want warm inbound, right? And so sometimes just reversing of like, what don't you like about your current situation? But sometimes the plan out gives us enough clarity. And so another thing that I think is really important is everybody's selling, like every closer I talk to, right? It's a 10K a month, 10K. It's always 10K, right? And I'm like, why 10K? Because someone else told them that's the number. They have no idea why they want to make 10K. They don't have no idea what that would actually mean, why it's not 12, why it's not 8, why it's not 25. They've just been told 10K. So they're like, okay, 10K. But what I tried to do is there's really 3 numbers that you need to focus on if you're trying to make a transition out of what you're doing now. There's the survival numbers, what you need to put food on the table, bills paid, not to take out massive debt, not living on the streets, eating out of dumpsters. Right. Then there's the replace what you have now, maintain lifestyle. So if you're in a job you don't like, right, what is that number? Not what did they say? What is the take home? Because that's all that matters, right? Not your salary, because you don't take home your salary, but what are you taking home on a monthly basis? Because that's step 2. And then step 3 is the dream. People don't realize you don't go from 0 to 10K, right? You have to go through the survival to the, okay, I'm doing what I love to do and making what I used to make. That's a good number. And then you have the leap for the dream. So you have to be able to put realistic milestones out that it is not a giant leap from 0 to 10K.
Wants that dream income, and they forget of the process to get there. Dude, I love how you broke that down, and knowing I would say the path is in the math, and knowing that math is so important.
Yeah. That was one thing, always running the numbers and seeing if it aligns, because that's part of the critic. Is the dreamer is the 10K, 20K, but the realist is like, yeah, that's great. Bills have to be paid on the first, right? So let's take care of that first.
Hey, 10K is cool, but we need 2,500 to eat and have a roof over our head.
That's it. And then I've cleaned toilets to keep the dream alive. I remember my car broke down and I went door to door selling chocolate bars, and went back after selling those chocolate bars, bought more, hit it again, came out with $380 that day, just going back and forth to Walmart buying back because I didn't have it, right? And so I was able to keep the dream alive by not only focusing on the end result, but like, I got to eat today and I got to pay rent tomorrow. That has to be taken care of, because if you don't take care of the present, the future is going to fall behind.
Dude, that's powerful. You gave some really good gold nuggets there. The first thing that I heard you say, and I know this is so key, and I want to point out to the audience, is the clarity section of really getting clear. When we talk about lifestyle design, guys, and living a life by design, really get clear on what that is. I really like Jay, you talked about like when people complain about their life, well, what do you actually not like about it? And then what's the opposite of it? That I've never heard before. And that's a great context to put this into, to better understand and reverse engineer. What is it I actually want to change in my life? What is it I actually hate about this job, this location, this situation? Guys, get clear on that, because you can have anything that you ask out of life. I truly believe this, but you have to ask the right questions to get the right answers to create the life that you want to have. The other thing you said is edge of ridiculousness. Like, I love that you said, like, when you dream, it almost has to be at that edge of ridiculous. Like you said, like astronaut, this and that. Like, it's like, oh, I want to own the first mansion on Mars. Okay. There is a realistic critic that's going to come in there and say, well, Cody, you're probably not going to own the first mansion on Mars. It'll probably be a generation or two after you, but you could definitely travel to Mars if you want to in your lifetime.
Yeah. And that's the realist's job, to say, okay, that's cool, but this is probably doable. 80%. I would rather live on the edge of ridiculous and have the realist go, I can get you 75% of the way there.
I'll take it.
To fall short, right? And so there's a negotiation that has to happen. The other thing that I think that people try and do is they try and hit every goal with one action, right? And so they want their passion project, to be their financial, to be their legacy and impact, to provide them leisure, to give them growth and challenge. And one thing that I've been able to do that I think makes things easier on me is decompartmentalize, right? My finances are taken care of by a financially intelligent business. My passion project and my impact is the mentorship. Like I said, if I had to choose, between my lifestyle and being able to provide financially or the integrity of the business of being able to help people, right? That's a tough decision for me. And anytime that I've found like an A or B that I don't like, I always try and create that C. And I think most people get, well, I can do something I love, or I can make a lot of money. I can do this, or I can do that. And I think you can do both as long as you don't need one thing to meet all your needs. And so I've set up businesses that cover my finances so that it allows me to make the right decisions based on my core values in this mentorship, which is my passion, my impact, my legacy, and my ability to give back to the industry that gave me so much. I have other things that allow for the leisure, right? I love to take off and fly my friends in to Europe for a festival in the summer. I love taking on new challenges and charities and growth, but I don't try and do all of those things in one action.
Wow, that's powerful. And I think that aligns with, I recently heard, and I think it's true, that everybody thinks that like your purpose has to be your passion. And sometimes they're not. And that your purpose in life can be something that you fulfill on and you create that, but you're very passionate about doing like the mentorship, which I'm passionate about mentorship and coaching and helping people step into their God-given purpose and live a life of intention and create fulfillment through that. There's money in it. Absolutely. I've made money in it, but I more so don't do it for the money. And I've created alternative ways to make money, like Maverick Media, to create that leisure. So now I get to serve at the highest capacity over here, not worrying about the bottom line. And I think that's awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it puts a lot of pressure, right? You get like, it's kind of that sophomore slump that musicians go through, right? They make that first album that was gold because they were living it large, having a great time. And now they're signed. Now they're a big deal. Now they're on tour. And the second album just feels manipulated. It feels like, because it's no longer just living for the music, right? And so I think we do that often, where we have these passions, but the pressure of being able to provide for us, either we cut corners or integrity starts to shake. And we see that with businesses that get too big too quickly, right? The integrity, the fulfillment starts to drop. And being able to separate those and say, I love this, but I'm never going to make the money that I need to. So I'm going to set this up. And also I want to give back. And I don't want to have to worry about not having the money to do that. Right. And so I kind of break it up into financial, passion, impact and legacy, leisure, and challenge and growth. And I make sure that all of those are filled, but they don't, sometimes there's overlap, right? Your passion and your if you're lucky enough to have an extreme passion that is also financially responsible, then go for it. Right. But a lot of times we feel the pressure, right? I had a guy come to me and say, you know what, I want to start a program for people that have been in abused relationships, right? And I want to be able to give that away. How can I work this business model? And I just said, focus on something first that will allow you to do that, because if you try and make money off that, it is going to ruin the whole idea and the whole energy of it. That is not going to be your retirement savings. That's going to be your legacy. And just putting first things first and being able to prioritize that and say the energy I put into the financial business will allow me to have a bigger impact.
Yeah, that's good. JD, we're coming to the end here, and I want to ask one last question. But before I do, you brought so much value today. How can people connect with you and get plugged in with JD and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think probably the easiest way, and where I spend most of my time and energy right now, is in our high ticket closers group on Facebook. It's the #1 high ticket closer group on Facebook. It's high ticket closers - current job opportunities. Don't let the title fool you. We're doing a lot more than job opportunities. I'm pouring my heart and soul into that. We're putting a lot of content for coaches, for course creators, for mentors, agency owners, and closers. So that is a community that we can spend a lot of time and have that chat. Also, the Undeniable Closer mentorship, and feel free to just reach out. Like I said, one of my passions is just connecting with people and talking through strategies. Let's get on a call. Let's chat it out. And so just connect with me on Facebook, I think is the best thing to do.
Awesome, guys. Well, make sure you go connect with JD. I'm a part of his community, and he's always bringing a ton of value. And what's interesting to me is whether you're a coach like myself and consultant that is moving into the phase of where I do need high ticket closers soon, and the relationship of I know JD can help solve that, or you're somebody that's in the sales world that wants to land that dream job selling that high ticket offer, or you're just looking to get mentored by somebody that's already been down that path that really can pour into you and invest in you in the way that JD does with everybody that's inside of his mentorship group. Go check him out, guys. Go connect with him for sure. JD, I like to ask this. I don't get to ask it every show, but it's a question that was asked to me by a mentor a long time ago. And it's a tough question, and I want to ask it to you if that'd be all right, man. And
absolutely.
My question for you is, JD, what breaks your heart in the world?
I think for me, seeing people live a life of regret and to buy in to a safe life, knowing that they could have lived something more. Like, I see the people that make decisions based on, I need to pay rent, I don't know what else to do. I think that struggle of not being supported, and then also the people taking advantage of those people, the vulnerability, the one person that finally is ready to make that move, and the vultures that prey on that person. That to me is something we deal with on a daily basis. I spend a large percentage of our business trying to help people after that situation. And so just the preying on vulnerability is probably the thing that hurts me the most in our business today. These online marketers coming in, they've never done what they're telling you they can do. They're experts in 45 different industries and niches, and they're preying on the vulnerability. They're putting out a general message of, do you hate your 9-to-5? Do you want more time with your family? Everybody wants these things, right? And so people who are unaware are buying into this, and they're putting their last dime into it, and they need this to work. And then they're coming to us after and saying, I'm in debt now. I had to take on a second job. I'm in real financial trouble because I trusted the wrong person. So the lack of integrity in this industry is something we're fighting against, and we are forcing people to step their game up when it comes to integrity.
Amen, brother. I love that. Phenomenal answer, guys. Make sure you go connect with JD. This does conclude this week's Motivation Everything show, guys. I appreciate all of you from the bottom of my heart that take the time to tune in, to watch the show, to engage with the show, that watch the replay. Thank you, guys. And join us next week, same time, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, or I think it's PDT time. And East Coast time, it'll be 7. I'll have another incredible guest, guys. I hope everybody has a phenomenal rest of your week, or better yet, go make the rest of your week great. Guys, talk to you soon.
Thanks, Cody.